Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast, your podcast to help you and your family cruise a little smarter when the cruise ships are sailing. And I'd like to welcome to the show Chris from LA. How you doing today, Chris, our co-host?
I'm doing pretty good today. I feel like it's only been 1 week since quarantine started, but it feels like it's been even longer. And yeah, this is giving me something to think about besides the ships not sailing.
Yeah, it was kind of surreal. I was looking at some of the pictures on Twitter and other places where they were showing different ships parking around the country and around the world. And I saw Doug Parker over at Cruise Radio. He showed a picture of the Norwegian Pearl pulling into park in Jacksonville for a while. So it's kind of odd seeing them just parked in different places.
Yeah, I mean, you told me, I think last week or a couple days ago, that the Magic is just parked over at Castaway Cay. And just thinking about that, it's like, well, of course, these ships, one ship is always going to be parked over at Castaway Cay just so they don't have to pay whatever the fees are that they would have to pay to keep it docked in one of the main ports, right?
Yeah, and I actually got that information from good friend of the show, Chris from Northern California. So let's bring him on and we'll talk about this a little bit. Chris, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, you're the one that kind of let me know about where the Magic was kind of going back and forth. And you've got some heavy equipment machinery that you work with your job, right?
Yes, we do.
So just like airplanes, I mean, ships are kind of the same way. Like you were alluding to, Chris. How should we do this? L.A. Chris, I'll just say that. How's that?
L.A. Chris.
L.A. I like that. As you alluded to, Chris, as far as the ships being parked, they get charged a fee when they're at port. So moving it back and forth between Castaway Cay makes sense. And also making the ships move back and forth keeps the engines running and all that type of stuff. So with your heavy equipment up there in Northern California, Chris, that's kind of the same thing you have, too. You got to keep those machines running, don't you?
Yeah, they're running all the time, and you can't, we don't have a place to park everything at once. If we had to park it all, we'd be in trouble.
Well, that's another part to it, too. So, yeah, I know with our planes, you got to keep them running. Otherwise, it just causes all different problems with seals, oil seals, and all that whatnot. So, but we are going to turn our focus to your latest cruise, which is out of New Orleans. And I think we're all kind of feeling the effects of kind of everything being shut down. So it's kind of good to turn our thoughts to something else besides quarantines and everything else. But your latest trip was out of New Orleans on the Disney Wonder. What made you decide to want to do this cruise?
We've never been to New Orleans before, so it sounded like, my wife she'd been there once in her teenage years, and she wanted to go back. So I thought it'd be fun to check it out. I'd never been there, and unfortunately I made a mistake. We landed on Fat Tuesday, which was not the best plan of action.
Oh, wow. Hey, Chris, have you been there before, Chris Bright?
No, New Orleans is actually, I'm going to say this and then I'll find out that I was wrong, but I think New Orleans is the largest major city in the country that I've not been to. So I'm excited to hear about this New Orleans cruise that you went on.
So what was it like landing on Fat Tuesday? I mean, one of the biggest party days of the year down there.
When we landed, we got to the airport. We're in the airport in New Orleans there, and it's like, I'd never seen so many people. It was like The Walking Dead in the airport. So I made drunk, still half drunk, hungover, hadn't showered, people getting out of town that day that had been partying for the whole weekend. And once we got our driver in the car, we were stuck in traffic on the freeway for a while. We spent an hour driving around the French Quarter. We were staying at the W Hotel in the French Quarter. He could not get anywhere near the hotel. He kept trying, I'll try this street. I'll go back over here and try this street. We finally got to the point when we walked our luggage 8 blocks through people partying to get to the hotel. It was an experience. The wheels were getting stuck on beads. It was interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Well, at that point, you might as well just join the party, right?
Well, I wanted to get to the hotel and get our stuff situated, but yeah, it was a long trying to trek to try to get through a crowd of people. And then part of this, there's a lot of big buildings there. The sidewalks are like grates where the exhaust is blowing up. So you're trying to roll the suitcase across those. It was not the ideal situation. And once we got to the hotel, it was a little quieter where we were. I mean, we had a balcony and there was hundreds of people walking down below. But yeah, it was interesting trying to get to the hotel. So once we got there, we got checked in, did all that stuff. And we were supposed to go to dinner that night at a certain restaurant. And the car was supposed to take us. And it's like, well, you're going to have to walk 8 blocks for me to drive you 2 more blocks. I'm like, well, we'll just go eat somewhere else.
Thinking about the hotel, how far out did you book it? Especially, with this time frame of year where so many people are traveling down to New Orleans.
So I booked the cruise, a year out. And then when I started doing the airfare about 10 months out, I got the airfare and I thought, well, I'll find a hotel. And so I just went on my Marriott app on my phone. I started looking through, and we stayed at a W before, and it looked kind of neat. It was in the French Quarter, so I thought, I'll do that. And it seemed kind of expensive. And I checked another Westin next door, and they're all about the same price range. I'm like, okay, it's I knew it was Mardi Gras time. I just didn't realize it was Fat Tuesday.
Those are the kind of things that, I never really think about. Chris, do you, Bright, do you look at that when you travel as far as when you make these vacations or plans ahead of time as far as what's going on? We kind of got stuck in the middle of the London Marathon when we first went on our cruise to Norway. Do you look at those type of things?
Actually, I feel like several times we have traveled places where something big was happening and we had no idea. Though, luckily for Seth and I, because we don't have kids yet, we're sort of in that ballpark space of it's cheaper to go at this time of year. And usually that's the time when less things are happening, I feel. Though Fat Tuesday is not probably during a school break or something like that. So I bet you it would be not on our radar and we would have done the exact same thing.
Yeah, my wife thought it was great because she loves the people watch. She loves all the excitement. And it was a school break for all the New Orleans kids, though. They were off that week, apparently.
Oh, that makes sense. Regionally, it makes sense for them to be able to be off when everybody is off.
Yeah, because there was, as Steve's guest on New Orleans a couple months ago was talking about, we saw families leaving the parades carrying all kinds of stuff. There was kids everywhere. It was, that's just normal for them.
Yeah, and being thrown different food that they would take home and cook.
They get thrown coconuts, they get thrown stuff. And I remember she was talking about a stuffed animal or something. And we're in the car stuck in traffic, and I see this little kid, about 5 years old, carrying this huge stuffed bear. And it made me think of that. It's like, oh, he must have got thrown to him from a parade float. Well, he was lucky.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting what Chrissy had to say as far as did you see any of the kids up on the ladder by any chance either?
I did not, because I saw the parade had just ended. So I saw everyone walking to their cars. And you couldn't even tell the street that it was asphalt because there was just so much paper on the street. It was just white, colored, and beads and all kinds of stuff. It was insane.
Did you get any actual New Orleans beads to wear with yourself to Tiana's place?
We have some. I didn't wear them at Tiana's place.
So you're in New Orleans. New Orleans is known for food. I feel like, 1, I need to know about beignets, and 2, I need to know just generally, where did you eat while you were there, and did you have really good food?
So we'll start with the beignets, and we went to Café du Monde, which is world famous. My wife had been there in high school. We had to go there, so I was like, okay. And that was an interesting experience. You walk in, and there's probably 150 little round tables with 4 chairs around them. And as soon as someone gets up, you got to go clean that table, and then they'll come wipe it off with the same rag. I think they wiped off the last 100 tables. The floor is white from all the powdered sugar and sticky. So being a germaphobe was not the place for me. And so they have beignets or coffee, and it's cash only. My wife was excited. She got coffee and beignets. I got some beignets. I had taken a Red Bull with me. They were fine. It took us 5 minutes to find the table. The to-go line had 100 people in it. We got up to leave, and we walk outside. The line to get a table now has 300 people in it. And I told my wife,
gosh,
we are lucky we came when we did, because I would not be waiting in this line. The day before, the driver had said, when you go to the Café du Monde, don't wait in the line, just go in there and find a table. I thought he was referring to the takeout line. I think the locals, there's multiple ways to get in. They just walk in and just go take a table. They don't wait in the line with the tourists. So that was an interesting experience. My wife was super excited, so it was fine.
Well, I mean, 1, I feel like some of the best places only serve one thing.
Correct.
And they always end up being cash only. It's if they only serve one thing and they're cash only, it's probably really good. There's this place in Oakland that sells chicken sandwiches called Bake Sale Betty's. And it's only open from noon to 2 p.m. and only some days of the week. And it always has a 2-hour long line. and when they run out of sandwiches, they run out. But it's like so good. And this sounds exactly like that, where it's just like a line out the door, cash only. We only serve one thing, and it's probably really delicious.
I mean, they were delicious, but it was a cold morning too, and the wind was howling. And it's basically a tent on the outside that on a nice day they'd roll up. And we had me sitting by like a seam, so it keeps blowing the thing like into my back in this cold air. I was like, let's just get out of here. But
so
my wife
it's good, but you're probably like, I don't know if I need to do it again.
Yeah, if it was like a sunny morning when it wasn't windy and it wasn't all closed in, it would have been a different experience. But it was good, and I could say I did it, so we crossed that off the list.
Okay, and so how many days before or after your cruise were you actually in New Orleans, and how many meals did you have?
So we landed 2 days before, so we had 2 dinners, the beignets, lunch, and that was it.
And what were those meals like?
The dinners we had were outstanding. I'm a steak person, so I tend to find places that have steak on the menu. One place we went to is called the Rib Room at the Omni Hotel. It was one of the best steak meals I've ever had. The shrimp appetizer was absolutely amazing. It's like and several places I saw had the same appetizer. It's like shrimp with like a real light kind of, it's almost like in a soup with some bread like in it, and it was like outstanding.
That sounds great. And that was at the Omni Hotel, you said?
At the Omni. And then the other place we at, I'm going to butcher the name. It's like Criollo. It's like Criollo. And it was at the Hotel Montalone. And it was the same thing. I had shrimp and steak, and it was just outstanding. It was, both those meals in New Orleans were delicious.
Oof, now I want to get some steak.
I had my first New Orleans layover this past week, and I've got to go back there. We had some kind of spicy shrimp and grits that was just amazing. It was like spicy, cheesy shrimp and grits. And it wasn't steak, but man, the food there is just amazing, isn't it, Chris?
Yeah, the shrimp appetizers were kind of a spicy barbecue sauce, but it was a real liquidy barbecue sauce. It was almost like a soup, and it was outstanding.
Yeah, that's one of those places you got to go to, Chris Bright. I'm telling you, it's right up your alley, I think, with the food.
It's on my list.
All right. Well, besides eating, you guys got a couple days to explore New Orleans. What were some of the things that you guys did down there? Is there anything that you could recommend for people sailing out of New Orleans next year?
So we just walked around, looked at a lot of window shopping. My wife went to a couple stores. Just kind of, I love architecture, and it's like there's so much architecture there. You know, all those buildings with the second and third story, patios out to the street. And then we spent about 5 hours actually in the World War II museum they have there, which is it's about a half mile from the French Quarter on the water there. And that was one of the really funnest things I've done in a long time. It was an outstanding museum.
Yeah, I can't wait to get down. That's one of the things I've been dying to get down to New Orleans for, is to see that World War II museum. And it would take up a whole day, couldn't it, to see everything in it?
Yes, we were there about 4.5, 5 hours. We ate lunch for half an hour, but we missed a bunch of stuff. There's a lot of interactive stuff. There's actually a 4D movie we watched that is narrated by Tom Hanks, which is really neat. There's another submarine type movie. We didn't get the chance to do that. But just every display has like a lot of interaction stuff. I mean, for young kids, it would just be an incredible place to take them.
The boats from World War II, I always forget the name of them that they used.
The PT boats.
Yeah, that they built them down there, right?
Correct. If I understand correctly, it was a factory where they built them, and it's several buildings. They call it a campus. It's on like two sides of a street, so there's like walkways overhead to go from building to building. I think there were 6 buildings, and they're working on a 7th. I mean, it's really incredible.
Was New Orleans pretty walkable then for people as far as getting around to these different places, or did you Uber? Or how did you get around the city?
We just walked. So the night before, which on Fat Tuesday, we walked to dinner. I mean, there's people everywhere. It's just crowds everywhere, no cars anywhere. I wake up Wednesday morning, I look over our balcony. Now instead of the people, I have a UPS truck and another delivery truck and cars driving. They shut it down at midnight and cleaned everything up. The streets were spotless, and we walked like 4 miles that day, and we just walked everywhere, and it was just nice walk. Looked at all the architecture, and we had a good time.
Did you ride the streetcar by any chance?
No, we crossed over the tracks of it and saw it go by, and it was like it was, we were going the opposite direction. We were crossing that line to get to the museum, but we did see it, took a picture of it.
The cars are pretty old looking, so they look pretty classic, which would be kind of cool to ride around the city. At least, I would love to go for a ride on one of those, I guess, for some reason. So, anything else that we're missing that you guys did beforehand, or any tips that you give somebody sailing out of New Orleans beforehand?
That would be about it. That's all we really got to do. We went to a lot of stores, and that's about it. I just don't recommend working on Fat Tuesday. That's the only thing I could say.
It's a good call.
Yeah.
So you had fun in New Orleans, and Disney has been on a marketing blitz about these New Orleans cruises and how the Wonder kind of has its own tie-in to New Orleans, right, with Tiana's Place. Tell me about, you've been on a bunch of these cruises too. So tell me about what was different about boarding this, what was unique about boarding in New Orleans, and let's sort of start there.
So, the boarding, the terminals is a generic terminal like any other terminal, but you're in downtown right there. And what the really cool thing was, and I didn't realize how long it would take, but you're on the Mississippi River. We were on the Mississippi River. We left port at 4:30-ish, 4:45. We were on the Mississippi till like 1 a.m. And unfortunately, it got dark by 6:45. It was pitch black. But you're just going down the river, just seeing the swamp lands on both sides of you, and that was really a neat experience. I didn't think of that ahead of time, and I didn't realize how long we'd be on the river. And they go so slow, and they actually have to use a thruster sometimes. So I actually woke up like 11:30 and thought, oh, wow, did we go back to port? Was there a medical emergency? Because I could feel the thrusters on the ship, but they're just navigating a narrow part of the river.
Right. I mean, so there are a few ports that I would put in the category of like iconic sail away, right? Like sailing out of New York City or
San Francisco.
Honestly, when we sailed San Francisco going under the Golden Gate Bridge, when we sailed out of San Juan past the old forts, amazing. But Port Canaveral is not an iconic sail away. Port Canaveral is sort of just like you're leaving a generic port and going away, right? But Correct. New Orleans sailing down Mississippi, the Mississippi River, that sounds iconic. That sounds like you couldn't do that from any other port on a ship as big as the Wonder. And I bet you that was like a huge sort of like selling point for Disney Cruise Line nerds like us.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on New York. I've been on Miami, and you're right. I think New York is still my favorite. We love Miami. Seeing look at that yacht. But our room was after the ship, and just sitting on our balcony, just watching, going by on the river. That was just like really cool. I mean, I've never spent so much time watching the sail away except for New York.
Did they do anything special as far as like, did they have like New Orleans jazz playing or anything as you guys left? Just something a little bit different to kind of, keep that theming for you guys?
No, it had the Mickey sail away party, whatever the new version is.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's different on every, they call it something different on every ship, don't they? I think. There's like a different...
Yes, and actually it was pretty windy and chilly, so we were in the concierge lounge. But after we got about 5 miles down the river, the wind stopped, and it was just gorgeous to sit on our balcony.
And I forget, does the Wonder does the concierge, because the Wonder's got the big lounge, right, where it's like glassed in, so you could actually sit in there if it was cold outside?
Correct. So it's got the glass on both sides, so we were just sitting we were on the starboard side, and just sitting in the sunshine, just enjoying the view for a while, and then we went back to our room, and then I went out on the balcony, like, oh, the wind stopped, let's sit out on the balcony.
Didn't talk about what room you were in or anything like that. I know normally you try to book the Roy Suite, right? But this time you couldn't do that?
It was just my wife and I on this trip, so I ended up just getting a 1-bedroom, and we were kind of late to the game. So we had, the only room left was a handicap accessible after the ship, but it turned out to be kind of a good thing because we ended up with one of the huge balconies. So it was nice. We had lounge chairs out in the balcony, so it actually worked out good.
Awesome.
So now both of you guys have cruised on the back of the ship before, because that's what you had up in Alaska, right, Chris? So Chris Bright, that is. So do you guys like that view, that being on the back like that then, between the two of you? Whoever wants to go first can go first.
I enjoyed it because you always had that iconic view of the propellers making the wake in the water. So it was like every time I looked out, that's what I had. And calm waters most of the time, so it was kind of cool.
From the back of the ship, you can, especially if the moon's out at night, you get this like really pretty view of the wake of the ship in like moonlight. in Alaska, we were actually on the very, very front of the ship, directly below the bridge. So like we had a forward-facing view. And I would say of the two, I might like the forward-facing view, though motion sickness is usually a bigger issue up front. So it really just depends on you and your specific needs.
Gotcha. So sorry about that. I couldn't remember. I thought you guys were in the back, but you guys were in the front for the Alaska one. I knew you were like on one end of the ship, but I couldn't remember which one it was, I guess. So, well, let's kind of talk about the food then. I know you guys usually go up to Palo quite a bit. Did you go down to Tiana's this time while you were there? And if you did, how did the beignets compare to Cafe Du Monde?
Our dining rotation, usually ahead of time, I'll call ahead and say we'd like this dining rotation because the kids are eating with us, and we'll try to schedule to be in a certain restaurant a certain night. So this time I didn't care. Well, it turned out we had Tiana's the first night, so my wife wanted to go there, and I'm like, fine. So we went, did the show. Had the show. It was great, and they had the beignets. And I gotta say, I got them with a scoop of ice cream, so I think I actually liked them a little better. My wife would kill me if she heard me say that, but.
So was it the ice cream that put it over the top, or was it the actual beignet itself?
And they were good. I mean, they weren't as fluffy and fresh, but they were pretty good, and I got a scoop of ice cream with it, so I couldn't go wrong.
Why don't you guys talk about Palo? Because I know that Chris is more of a foodie than I am.
Palo's my favorite. And you, Chris, you usually do Palo more than one night, right?
Correct. We're there quite often. So this is a 4-night cruise. We had 3 dinners and 2 brunches at Palo.
Okay, so 3 dinners, 2 brunches, and then your 4th dinner was at Tiana's place because you didn't want to miss the show and the beignets.
Correct.
Now, when you go to Palo, do you order a different thing each time? Or are you like, this is my go-to thing at Palo, I always get this?
I am a very stuck in a rut kind of person. I get the same thing every time. We have local restaurants we go to that they haven't brought me a menu in 10 years. So I always get, and Palo, they'll do what you want. And so I always get a filet with, instead I go, I don't want the potatoes. I want whatever risotto you have tonight. And a couple shrimp, and that's what I have for the whole time.
I mean,
my wife,
if you know what you
will try
like,
something different every night. She has several favorites there, and one is that fish they prepare tableside where they debone it, and then she has one of the pastas one night. So she ventures out. I eat the same thing all the time.
Yeah, that actually sounds similar to Seth. Seth is the one who gets the deboned fish tableside, and every time we go to Palo, I usually get the steak. So look at us. But that brunch is a little easier to be adventurous because everything's so tiny, and it's like I could try that, see if I like it,
Yeah. So on the brunch, since we went twice, one day I kind of went more the breakfast type theme of food. Ended up, getting stuff from the buffet and then ordering a waffle. And then the second time I went more with the lunch theme and got all kinds of stuff from the buffet and then got the calzone.
Well, that Mickey waffle is like the best kept secret because it's like the gourmet version of a Mickey waffle that's also the size of Mickey's actual head. And I love that Mickey waffle at Palo Brunch. But I've never gotten the calzone, didn't even know that was an option.
Yeah, so it's a prosciutto and red bell pepper calzone, and it is awesome.
Oh my gosh. Have you ever gotten the chicken parm?
No, I think my wife did once, and she said it was delicious. And I've seen other people getting it. I've gotten a calzone 3 or 4 times. I've gotten a waffle a bunch of times. And one time I go, the waffles are really good. I'm going to try the pancakes. And you know how big the waffle is. The pancakes came 3 little pancakes. I could have had like 5 orders of them. I'm like, oh, okay.
No. Going back
good,
to my
but
waffle.
there wasn't much of them.
Well, and that Mickey waffle, correct me if I'm wrong, but that Mickey waffle at Palo comes with fresh strawberries inside of the batter, right?
So I order the app. There's different versions. I get the apple cinnamon one, which comes with the hot apple like compost and cream to pour on top of it.
That sounds delicious too. Now I need to go to Palo.
It is. And then, those little desserts they have with the half an apricot on top of them? Do you remember those?
Yeah.
So that's like my favorite dessert, and I'll have 5 or 6 of those.
Uh-huh. Well, I told our server the last time we were in Palo, I was like, I love these chocolate-covered strawberries, but they run out because they only have like 9 or 10 on the tray, and people run up and grab them. And so my server brought me a little plate of like 5 of them, and I just like ate one after the other because I mean, those chocolate covered strawberries, if you go to like Sweet on You or Vanilla Peas, are like $3 a piece. But if you go to Palo Brunch, they're included. So I also highly recommend those. And then you did a little bit of research for me because on a past show, I mentioned that I'm obsessed with the shot glasses that have like the Venetian glass that they give you at the end of Palo dinner.
Correct. And my wife's the same thing. But I was laughing when you're talking about on the show because my wife wants those glasses.
And they're so hard to find. I used the research you did for me, but I couldn't find them online. It made me so sad.
And it was like, if I would have had Luca as the restaurant manager, I think I could have got him to give me one or sell me one or whatever. But I've had Luca like the last 5 cruises before this, but this was a guy I'd never met before. And he was really accommodating for everything we did and everything, but he let me take a picture of the box. That was about it.
Aww.
And they had boxes
we can always
of them.
Dream. I'm sure they do because there's probably people who are not as moral as us who are like, oops, it fell in my purse.
It's like, my wife's like, I wish we could take one of these, kind of joking. And it's like, I would never do that, because I actually have a Disney towel at home from the ship that we took accidentally, and I kind of felt bad.
I know. I've even felt bad by accidentally taking the laundry bag, but they charge you for that.
I was smuggling Red Bulls on board in my backpack 2 cruises ago, and we get on the ship, and all of a sudden I realize one is spraying inside my backpack. So we get to the room, and I take everything out, and I'm wiping the inside of my backpack, and I put the towel in there to kind of soak up everything. Well, then I didn't open my backpack until the day we're leaving. I start throwing everything in there, and like a couple days later, I'm unpacking. I'm like, oh, we now have a Disney Cruise Line towel. Like,
well,
now
there's podcast evidence.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. Now you have to sneak Red Bulls on. Can't you bring those on just like you bring beer on or something like that? Or
I usually just throw them in my backpack. So
yeah.
I just have some in there, and somehow a can got a pinhole in it, and started on our birth certificate or on my passports. It was a mess.
So I want to circle back as far as, so when you go to Palo, several times on a cruise like this, do you get the same server? Do they seat you at the same server, the same table, or do you request that, or how does that work?
So generally, they will, whatever server you have the first time, they will seat you the rest of the time. And that happened on this cruise. We got a server we never had before, had a great server, loved him actually. But on like other cruises we've had, on the Magic, I've had the same server over like 3 cruises. And, the first day we get there, we see Luca, he's like, welcome back. And he knows where to seat us. And, everyone wants the tables by the window. I would rather sit at the booth part where my wife sits at the booth and I sit at the chair like on the side. So it's easier to talk and, visit.
That makes sense. Well, and Palo is so different from the classic ships to the new ships. Like, in terms of the layout of the restaurant and just like the way that the seating is all set up. So do you have a different spot on a classic ship than the new ships, or? So
the classic ship, it's for brunch, we usually sit by the window. And then for dinner, we sit on the inner where the half a booth thing is. On the Dream class ships, how Palo's really long. When you walk into the second room, all the way to the very back, there's like 2 little half circle booth type things. We sit in one of those tables.
Okay, yeah, we sat in one of those on our Palo cruise on the Fantasy, and that was a nice spot. I really liked it. So
you have, if it's daylight, you have a nice view outside, and it's kind of quieter over there. So I like that. I'm hard of hearing a little bit in one ear, and so sometimes I'm looking at my wife like, what did they say? So it's easier when I'm sitting right next to her. She could just like, do you want bread or do you want more water kind of thing.
Well, not that we've eaten at Palo as much as you guys have, but I kind of enjoy. I'm kind of weird. I kind of like watching the kitchen, actually. The one, unlike classic ships where you can see the kitchen. I love watching.
I do like an open kitchen.
Yeah, I love seeing what they're doing back there, I guess. So, well, as far as the rest of the time on the ship, did you guys do anything else? Anything else stand out as far as some of the onboard activities or things that you did, Chris?
So we had a day at sea, Cozumel day at sea. So we had a massage one day, a couple's massage, and then we played, I think, 3 games of bingo, took a couple naps. I mean, it's just, since we had no kids, it was really relaxing.
So I kind of see the theme of this whole vacation is like go to New Orleans, see a new city, eat some good food, and then relax on the cruise, huh?
Correct. But I did run a 10K one day on deck 4, and then another day I ran a 5K. The second day there was too many people. I got tired of dodging people with the shuffleboard, so I gave up.
Do you like running on deck 4 versus a treadmill?
Yes, I do not. I cannot run on a treadmill. It's not for me. And I love. It's something about as soon as the first time I go on deck 4 on a cruise, it's like you realize I'm on a cruise. I'm on the ocean. I'm on vacation. It's just super relaxing to me just to run on deck 4. If there's not a lot of people out there.
Yeah. So Steve follows me on Strava, and I ran on deck 4. And I used the Strava app just to record like how my pace was, except it uses GPS. So it was like, you're running a 4-minute mile through the middle of the ocean. And I was like, wow.
And the map will look like a paperclip, like on the GPS, like it were, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Steve commented something like, oh, you ran a straight line in the middle of the ocean, did you? But,
so have you noticed...
I like running on deck 4 too.
Have you noticed the difference between the Magic and the Wonder on deck 4 when you're running?
No, tell me.
So on the Wonder, when you're in the aft section, it's not just a curve. There's like a bump out you got to go around.
Oh, so you have to be even more agile on the Wonder.
You got and pay it the first. I hadn't done the Wonder in a lot of years, and I'm running. I'm like, whoa, there's a wall right here that sticks out like 3 feet. You got to go around it. For some reason, there's a little bump out in the path on the Wonder. I have no idea, but that's a little difference.
Well, and you really can only run the loop on deck 4 if it's a sea day, because when they're in port, they like close out the back or the front of the ship for like whatever they do with the chains and the ropes and the things. So on a sea day, I definitely like it. But I also think that running on a treadmill makes the run feel like it's lasting for much, much longer than if you're running outside or like have more to look at.
Correct. That's the same for me. I'm used to running outside on my farm, looking at, hills and stuff like that. So, and I found on the port days, especially in the European cruise, if you run early enough, it's not closed. They close it when they got to shoot the ropes over for them to tie up. So at that point, they do close it.
That makes sense. Also, the New Orleans cruise that you were on, so it has the Tiana's restaurant, but what's the show? The show on the Wonder is only Frozen, right? What are their like other company shows?
Frozen, and I think, what's the standard one?
Believe and Dreams or something like that. I'm trying to look it up. But it
might have been Believe. We didn't watch. We're not show people. My wife will go with my daughter sometimes, so we didn't see any shows on the ship at all.
Well, and also with the amount that you're cruising, I feel like it might get a little repetitive.
Correct.
Like, we are annual pass holders at Disneyland, but we haven't seen the Frozen show at Disneyland in probably like 2 years. Yeah,
and and any cruise that has a port day or anything, by the time we get back, I like to relax on the balcony if we have on our balcony, and by the time we get ready for dinner and stuff, it's like we always have late dining, so we usually just miss the shows.
I do kind of wish they would double down on the Tiana thing and do a Princess and the Frog show on the Wonder, because over on the Magic, they have Rapunzel's Royal Table, and they also have the Snuggly Duckling Bar takeover, and they also show Tangled. So it's like a lot of synergy there.
It's all kind of connected.
They would do that on the Wonder, but maybe one day.
I think with the Wonder going up to Alaska, they still like having Frozen on it for those sailings, I guess. But you're right, it doesn't quite fit with the rest of the Tiana theme, does it?
Yeah, but when the Fantasy goes up to Alaska, they have Frozen already, so...
There you go. I think that was like the little hidden gem that announced that the Fantasy's coming to the West Coast. Was when they moved Frozen 100%. Over there.
And they're not going to want Frozen to be on both ships forever. So watch them announce that Princess and the Frog is coming to the Wonder.
There you go. And you know what? We talked about it on the last show that I just released today with Lake from. Go ahead and say it, Chris.
Lake from Lakeland.
Yeah. Anyways, I think it's hard to, even if you want to go to the shows, if you got that second dining like you had, Chris, I think it's hard to get motivated to go to the shows that early, to be completely honest. Especially when you get back from a port, I'd rather just hang out for a little bit or go jump on the Aqua Duck or Aqua Dunk for cool off or something like that, especially if it's been a hot day.
Yeah, that's a voice count for us.
We are show people, so we take the time, but also, I don't know, if we had seen that show a bunch of times, maybe we wouldn't do it again,
Well, let's turn to your one port day then. You guys were in Cozumel. Have you been there before? I forget. And what did you guys have planned?
So we were there last year on the Magic, and so this time we had planned, it was a cabana beach something. We had that, it was just going to be, my wife and I just had a cabana going to the beach, relaxing, easy. And the morning we wake up, I mean, the ship was tied up, and you could still feel like movement. It was like the waters were so rough. And so we get ready to go, and we get a quick breakfast real quick, and we head down to wherever we're meeting, like one of the lounges, and we have our ticket for our thing. And the guy goes, he's looking, and he goes, well, the beaches are closed today. There's red flag warnings, so you can go on the excursion, but you can't go on the water, and it's pretty windy. Or we can just give you your money back. I'm like, give us our money back. So we'll
Sold.
just get off, and we'll walk around and check out all the shops and stuff. So we just got off the ship, and we walked around for a couple hours to the point where I couldn't handle saying no thank you to someone again, because every store has someone standing out front trying to sell me Cuban cigars, Viagra, something else. I told my wife, how old do I look? I've had 5 people try to sell me Viagra. There's a couple stores I wanted to go. I saw something kind of cool. I wanted to go in there. I'm like, I don't want to deal with it, though. So the couple stores we did, we actually spent $150, $170, bought some stuff for the kids. At the 2 stores where they weren't harassing us out front, we walked in. If there's anything we could help you with, let us know. And then we found our things and kind of left.
Chris Bright, have you been to Cozumel before?
I haven't been to Cozumel. I've been to Mexico because I live very, very close to Mexico, but I have not been to like southern Mexico in any way or anything on the Gulf. So those are all on my list.
The water is so beautiful and blue and clear there. It's unbelievable, but it was just so rough that day. But it's the most gorgeous water you've ever seen.
I've heard also that Cozumel has some really good snorkeling if you can get out to it.
I wouldn't be surprised because the water just looks, I mean, even as rough as it was, and we're walking along the dock of the ship there, you could still see the bottom. And it was like, wow. Because in New Orleans, the water was like this mud.
Yeah, I was going to say, it might be an iconic sail away, but it is not a beautiful, crystal clear water sail away.
Definitely not.
My cousin and her husband get down there once a year to go scuba diving off of Cozumel. So, yeah, it's been on our bucket list to get down there and do that eventually with them, too. So I can imagine the water's beautiful. I think that's where they... Oh, what are those, like, the great big whale sharks? I think or is that on the Pacific side? I can't remember now.
No, there are whale sharks in all the oceans, pretty much, except for very cold water. And I've actually seen a whale shark from my balcony on the Dream.
Because I know they've swam with whale sharks during one of their snorkeling excursions before, but I couldn't remember where it was. I think that would be... Those things are huge.
Yeah, they're massive.
Well, I'm sorry it didn't quite work out as far as doing your port adventure there. Have you ever thought about going over to the pyramids by any chance, Chris?
So last time we were there, to go to the big pyramids, it's like the 45-minute ferry ride. And I want to say it's like a 2-hour bus ride. And I was like, that's just a long ways to go. So last time there's some smaller ruins there. I forget what it's called. And it's literally 15, 20 minutes from the dock. We went there, loved it, saw all kinds of cool stuff, and then spent like an hour and a half, 2 hours there. And then we went to the beach for the rest of the day. So that kind of worked out. I got to see some, ruins and history type stuff, and then went to the beach.
Yeah, we went to Chichen Itza a long time ago, but it wasn't on a cruise. We'd gone down to Cancun and went to the pyramids. They're pretty amazing, but I think it's like one of those, man, you got to really want to do them if you're going to do them on a port excursion day from Cozumel, because you got to take the boat over there, and like you said, then the bus ride. I'm not sure that you'd have to really want to go and see them. So.
I remember it was like over 6 hours travel time by the time you left the ship, went to the ferry, got to their side, got on the bus, and I was like, I want to see these, but I don't want to spend 6 hours to do it.
And people famously get sick on that ferry ride to the mainland, and then they're in the car ride or the bus ride. That's another couple hours, and it's like that much travel. You really have to have a strong stomach and be willing to sort of like be in it for the long haul.
Yeah, and I knew my daughter was not going to be in it for the long haul, so I didn't even bother. And when we were there a year ago, it was shortly after they had shut the ferries down for a while because there was some kind of... Remember there was like they found like a bomb or something on one or something?
Yeah, they found bombs.
So I was like, let's just stick, staying on the island there.
It makes sense to me. Well, unfortunately, you guys don't get to get a Castaway Cay on this cruise. You guys,
no.
Yeah, but still, it ends a good, at least in my mind, a good way as far as having a day at sea before you head back to New Orleans. Anything else stick out that we haven't talked about on the ship as far as that last day, or that we hadn't talked about previously?
No, the sailing worked out. My perfect sailing is start off with a day at sea and end with a day at sea. So we did that, but we only had 1 day in between. But overall, it was just the water was, it was rough in Cozumel, but when we left, it was always smooth sailing. So it was just, everything was good.
And 4-day cruise, do you like that?
Yeah, it was a little quick getaway for me and my wife. We got to spend 2 days in New Orleans, so it kind of, worked out.
It was like a week-long cruise if you think of it in the sense that, like, you were away from home for about a week.
Correct. I mean, I couldn't have swung leaving my daughter's 18, my son's 15. We left them home alone with another one of their friends stayed with them. But it's like, 6 nights was kind of, we were a little nervous. So I didn't want to try to do like 9 nights or something. So
yeah, you're kind of pushing your luck.
And we definitely wanted to spend a couple nights in New Orleans. So it worked out for us.
Sounds amazing.
Okay.
Was this your first time on the Wonder since it's like slight remodel? I know they didn't do too much during dry dock, but they added a couple of things.
No, we actually were on it for that little 2-night cruise last October, so we got to see all the upgrades then.
Oh, right. Okay, so not much new to report there.
No.
Well, anything stand out as far as debarkation, getting off the ship, and then back to the airport, Chris?
No, debarkation was super quick. For some reason, Port Canaveral always seems like the longest lines for customs and everything. This was, I think by the time we walked off the gangway and we're outside was 5 minutes. So it was super quick and easy. But I do say once you get outside there, it is just kind of chaos because all the people waiting for like taxis and Uber and private vehicles are all on this one little island kind of in the middle of these lanes, and there's not enough room. The terminal is not meant for getting 2,600 people off all of a sudden in the morning. That was a little congested there, but it was fine.
And did you guys Uber back, or how'd you get to the airport?
So I actually had arranged private transportation ahead of time. They always show up 20 minutes early. So in the middle of all this, I'm on the phone with the airline trying to change our flight because when I had booked this flight, it was a direct flight coming home to SFO, and it left at 1:55. Well, at some point in the year, they changed the departure to 3:55. So I'm looking off, getting off the ship, like, we're going to be in the airport for like 6 or 7 hours. So I go, there's a flight that goes through Denver. So I'm on the phone, the airline's going through customs. Before you even get the customs for debarking, they do not want you on the phone. And I tried to stand to the side, and they yelled at me to keep moving. So we ended up changing our flight to one that left like in 2 hours. And I'm like, okay, where's our driver? They're always here early. And there's all these people here that can't even get in, but it all worked out.
Well, what's next for you guys then? I mean, things are kind of changing quickly. I know you guys had a cruise book like we did that is now kind of gone by the wayside. What's next for you guys?
Well, yeah, we were supposed to be on the April 11th on the Fantasy. That is not happening. So I have April 13th on hold on the Dream, and I would bet $1,000 right now that cruise is not happening. And then after that is Europe, June 13th, I believe, and I'm starting to wonder if that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, who can tell, honestly.
So I have a couple disappointed kids. My daughter's her senior year of high school, so she was her last spring break with the family, and she is just devastated, and now pretty much she's not going back to school ever in high school again, it sounds like. So I have a very unhappy child at home.
Oh, man. Well, let's hope that one in June goes at least. And
I hope so.
Yeah, if not earlier. Hopefully that April 13th one will go, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd be betting on that one either, too, if I was in Vegas.
And I think I'm like you guys. It seems like whenever you're going on a cruise, the night before you're kind of excited. And as soon as you walk on the ship, even though we've done it lots of times, it's just something when you walk on the ship in that atrium, it's like, I'm on vacation. This is going to be fun, a good time. I think the next time we all get to do that, it's going to be extra special.
Yep, I think so too.
Well said, and I think we'll just end it on that. Well, thanks again, Chris. I know you're a good friend of the show always. I always appreciate your takes and coming on and talking about New Orleans this time. And I just want to wish you the best. Hopefully that April 13th cruise goes, and hopefully we'll see you on board in June.
Sounds good. I have my fingers crossed.
All right, take care, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Chris for coming on and sharing his and his wife's experience as they sailed out of New Orleans on the beautiful Disney Wonder. And as you can tell, this was recorded a while ago, and most of the sailings that he had planned didn't go through, as well as sailings for the rest of us as well. So luckily, Chris has pushed his on and has got a lot of other fun things and adventures planned, and hopefully soon those ships will be sailing and we'll all be back out on the sea, whether on the Wonder, the Magic, the Dream, or the Fantasy. Well, if you've enjoyed our show, we would love it if you would go over to iTunes and leave us a review. That helps us get the show known out in the Disney cruising and podcasting community. That really helps us grow the show and reach out to new listeners. Also, if you're interested in supporting the show, you can go over to patreon.com/DCL podcast, and you can find out all kinds of information there on how you can support this show. I also want to give a huge shout out to everybody who participated in the Quarantine Key 5K this past Memorial Day weekend. It was a lot of fun seeing everybody's pictures and kind of connecting with everybody this past weekend. So once again, I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for all of you who got out there and ran, and for those of you as well who supported Give Kids the World, just a great cause. So between now and our next show, on behalf of myself, Steve, Christy, and Chris, all of us here at the DCL Podcast, we want to wish you just all the best, be well out there, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.
The DCL Podcast is not affiliated with the Disney Cruise Line, Walt Disney Company, Adventures by Disney, or Run Disney. All of the opinions expressed on our shows are those of the hosts and the guests who appear on the show. If you have any questions about any of these products, please contact the Walt Disney Company.